everybody, and welcome to the biggest show in sports.
This isn't Fart Talk Radio or anything. Thursday, Brandon Lowe Show 95, the Sports Fox. You're out of work, Charleston. Time to talk some sports. Excited to be here with you today. Full house in the studio today. Got Mr. Ryan Pritt, Gazette Mel, Prep Rider. What's going on? He's in the house. We got Richard over here, too.
What's going on, guys?
Going pretty good, man. We got Matty Stout, host of the Pat White Podcast.
Hold on, boys.
If it's almost a sport, follow the show. It's game time. On the
Uh-oh.
Give me a second to fix this.
All right.
360 slam.
He's going to fix that for us. Our system's going crazy already, boys.
Marshall University basketball.
Matlock's going to take care of that.
Brought to you by the City of South Charleston.
That's me.
Someplace special.
All right, there we go. Our system sometimes goes crazy, folks. But anyway, Matty Stout, the host of the Pat White Podcast, will join us at 5:15. We'll talk some Mountaineer stuff. He lives up there in California near Oakland and San Francisco area, too. So he's a big Warriors fan as well. So we'll talk a little Warriors basketball. Speaking of the Warriors, they've really got it going on now. We kind of talked about that team. Very similar to what we saw with the Heat with LeBron James and Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh, where when they first got together, it kind of took some time to get some chemistry. But very similar to what we're seeing out of the Warriors now. I think they've won like 12 games straight at this point. Last time I checked, they might have won another one. I don't know. But they look impressive, as we probably expected them to be.
I think they'll be okay.
Yeah, I think they'll be okay.
Just fun.
People are freaking out, too. They always freak out when you get these super teams together, and they wonder if they could play together and such. But they're definitely proving that they're definitely it's funny, before the NBA season, I said the storyline basically is we're waiting for the Cavaliers and Warriors to take on each other again in the NBA Finals.
Yeah, this regular season is just, why are we doing this? I don't know.
But, yeah, so we'll talk about the Warriors. The Mountaineer football team is going to be Senior Day this Saturday against Baylor, so always an exciting time for the seniors. And you can call the show, 304-344-9704. Take us on the go at 95thesportsfox.com. Tune in app and simulcast rcsports.com. Our YouTube should be up as well, so you can check that out. Live on Facebook as well. You can follow us on Twitter at WBES Brandon Lowe. We had a good time last night live at Eagles Nest at Little Creek Golf Course. We had Zach Hills, the captain of the Marshall Hockey Club, and they'll take on the Mountaineers, WVU, at the South Charleston Memorial Ice Arena this weekend. Saturday, 8 p.m. and Sunday at noon. Tickets just $10 for that. And I think that's interesting, too, to keep talking about how important it is to keep West Virginia and Marshall playing each other in sports. I like seeing it in basketball, especially down at the Charleston Civic Center. Football, obviously, is every year West Virginia pulls out the victory, but it's still fun to get those two teams together. And that's kind of what we talked about last night up there was, I don't know how many people go out to those hockey games. Have you guys actually gone out to some of those hockey games out there?
No, I haven't been to any of them, believe it or not.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I haven't. Scheduling.
Okay. But we talked about how hockey's really grown even in this state. It's tough because we don't have the cold weather as much as these other Midwestern states and the North. But I always talk about the roommate that I had in Columbus. He was a big Buffalo Sabres fan. So when we would do the Sabres stuff, I mean, it was just crazy up there for hockey. They like their sports teams as much as we like the Mountaineers here in West Virginia. So, but it was fun actually talking hockey. It was kind of out of my comfort zone because I don't watch much hockey, but it is fun to watch in person. A lot of people go to Penn's games, and that's always fun to go to as well. You're a Pirates fan as well, so
Don't remind me today of all that. Let's keep the Pirates out of this for today. I'm mad at them.
Matlock, did you get it fixed?
Yeah, man, putting out the fires. We're good now. We shouldn't have that, hopefully, for the next
crazy.
hour.
Our system sometimes, it's been a while since it's done that, though.
It has, so I'll give it credit. But today, of course, it would happen right at 5.
It's been a long time since it's done that, since we put in that new, we didn't put in a new box, but we had the monitor and stuff. But what'd you hit spacebar over there to start freaking out?
I didn't hit anything, and it started freaking out.
That's Matlock. Matlock, go ahead and try to bring yourself in if you can.
Yeah, I made it. going on, fellas?
What's up, man? We'd appreciate you putting out that fire.
No problem. We're good now.
That's what happens. It's a live radio show, folks, so you just got to bear with us and get through it, and we'll be back on track, we think.
Yep. Here we are.
All right, let's get to our breaking news.
It's time for breaking news in sports, but it's still sports and news.
From the Brandon Lowe Show newsroom, I'm Brandon Lowe, and here's the news and sports. That's still sports and news.
All right, news and sports. Sports till news. Last night, a good one in college basketball. There was a couple good ones, but UNC and Indiana. Now, we had the assistant at Fort Wayne on last week, Mark Downey. We talked to him about his big victory over Indiana. Some people kind of question where this Indiana basketball team is. They were ranked third in the country at the time when they were defeated by Fort Wayne. Big victory over UNC last night. They just looked really good last night, and one of the best environments I've seen in college basketball in a while. And usually in college basketball, for the most part, you get good environments for certain games, as we see at the Coliseum, and especially in college basketball with scheduling. A lot of the games in the middle of the week, so it's hard or tough for people and folks in Charleston and things to travel up in the middle of the week for West Virginia to take on Manhattan. They'd rather just stay home and kind of watch it on TV. They got to get to work the next day. But for this, UNC Indiana, like I mentioned, great environment. So great that Coach Roy Williams of UNC kind of questions his own fans in regards to what the situation is in his arena. And he said it was a great college basketball atmosphere. One team really played right from the get-go. The second one did not, and that was us. He goes on to say it was a wonderful crowd. He said, gosh, I'd like to play in front of a crowd like that in the Smith Center every night other than the frickin' Duke game. So calling out his fans a little bit. Now, the problem is, if you look at the seating layout, much like you see in a lot of arenas, and you see that in the Coliseum, the UNC lacks a student section on there, so near the court, because the environment, they have the older folks and the big money donors right there in the front. So that's kind of the different type of environments you see. You go watch Duke Crazies in there. They're right in your face as you're trying to inbound the ball. So it has a lot to do with the seating. And we'd have to watch this and see how the fans react to Roy Williams' comments. Now, this isn't the first time that he's voiced his opinions either about his fans, to his fans. If you recall, it probably is about 2 years ago now, he got a certain phone call from a fan in his coach's show, and he kind of laid into that fan. He kind of took a lot of criticism for that as well. Yeah. It's a high-pressure job at UNC, I guess.
You know, people forget how rabid Indiana's basketball fan base is because – you know, they had a few down years, and Coach Crean's done a good job with them, you know, over the last couple. They've kind of really refound themselves, and that's their second premier win of the year, isn't it? Didn't they beat Kansas?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, they beat somebody big.
So.
It was somebody top 10 game. I'm not sure that it was Kansas, but, you know, despite that Fort Wayne loss, which is, I also believe they had a few players out with the flu that night,
right.
too. That, don't get it wrong, that's one of the best teams in the country, I think. They're a force in March.
Your thoughts, Richard Erlen?
Well, I mean, don't you think, at least with basketball, I don't really put much stock into the top 25.
Right, yeah.
I mean, you're looking at that RPI when you get down to the end of the year. That's the rating that they look at. That's what matters. You know, people's like, oh, West Virginia, they just lost to Temple. You know, okay, big deal. We're 5-1. Let's move on next game.
It's a good thing about basketball.
Yeah. And the thing about basketball, too, is you have so many games. So if you lose one early, especially, you can bounce back in the middle of the season, especially in your conference schedule.
Right.
If you start winning conference games, you're going to start moving up in that top 25. Really, for that, you just want to you want to do well in your conference tournament as well near the end of the season. That improves your seeding in the NCAA tournament. It's completely different than what we see in college football. You got 12 regular season games. And now you got this wonderful committee. We get to sit through and watch them put their top four and so on and so on. So I'd actually like to see college football go more towards the college basketball philosophy. I don't know how they would make that happen, but I'd like to see a little change in how they do things. Now, we're still early in this committee stuff and process with college football, but it's certainly two different animals when it comes to both those sports.
Yeah, and it's tough in football when you don't play as many games. Losses are obviously going to hurt worse. But, you brought up the WU Temple thing. The cool thing about games like that is at the end of the year, that's going to be a much more beneficial thing for Temple than it will be a hindrance for West Virginia.
Yeah.
You give some of these mid-major schools some cracks at some of these good schools early in the year, and they know how important it is to get one of those when it comes down to, if you're on the bubble and you need a marquee win. So I think that's what's really cool about early season college basketball and why you see some of these games, because some of these lesser college basketball teams know now's the chance to get one of these wins that's going to help you make the tournament in March. So it's a good thing, I think, overall for the sport.
All right, moving over to college football news. A couple more names surfacing in this Houston job. Lane Kiffin and Les Miles now reportedly for this Houston job. And Ryan's rolling his eyes, which I agree with you, because first off, why is Lane Kiffin going to leave for the Houston job? He's an offensive coordinator for Alabama. He can continue to sit there and call offensive plays and win national championships. He's getting paid pretty well at Alabama. So why take a Houston job? He's going to take a Power 5 job if he's leaving Alabama, in my opinion. Much like Les Miles, I think at this point Les Miles would be more interested in taking the Purdue job at this point than the Houston job. I think we need to stop as the media and stop talking about how this Houston job is such a sexy job. Now, it is a great job, okay? It's a great job for those guys looking for their first head coaching gig. It's a nice one where you get an offense coordinator or even a coach maybe just a little lower than Houston, maybe out of the MAC. And a guy that jumps out to me is P.J. Fleck over at Western Michigan. I think that guy would be a great fit for Houston. I think it'd be a great jump up and would get him noticed more in a larger city, a city that he can recruit players. And there's a nice little falling going on in Houston right now. So I think that would be a good one. And also we mentioned Art Browse.
Yeah.
I think that would be great for Art Browse, former coach of Houston. I think to try to get back into the Power 5 scene, if he can run a clean program, win some ball games as he should, you could see him move also eventually back into Power 5. And Ryan, you said even, and I got to give you credit, because if this does happen, you called it. Art Browse is going to be coaching a lot sooner than we thought.
Yeah, and you bring up a good point there too, because remember Bobby Petrino started back at Western Kentucky after all of his stuff, and of course was able to have success there, and now relanded the Louisville job. But yeah, you're right. Kind of someone that's been in a little bit of trouble for Browse could get that gig, prove he's worth it, prove he can run a clean program, and maybe get back into a Power 5 school later.
But the question is school going to take a gamble?
Right.
Now, I mean, Petrino, I don't remember what his exact deal was, but when you're talking about football players and alleged rape, and you're talking about the level of, what happened, is somebody going to take that dive versus, say, a coach? Well, let's take Patino. Supposedly Patino had an affair with so-and-so.
Yeah.
Are you going to deal, which is the bigger of the moral, the bigger moral compass?
All right, we got to take a break, but in regards to Art Browse, the Board of Regents of Houston did claim there's a clarity issue with Art Browse. So they're going to have to sit there and say, well, did it actually happen? Was he a scapegoat? So we'll have to watch that. But I certainly think they would be interested if Art Browse was interested. All right, you call the show 304-344-9704. I believe we had Maddie Stout on the line already, so we'll be back with us after the break. Brendan Lowe Show, 95 Sports Fox.
You're listening to The Brandon Lowe Show on 95 The Sports Fox. Be a part of the show. Let the Valley hear your opinion.
That's just like your opinion, man.
On the top sports stories locally or nationally. On The Brandon Lowe Show, call 304-344-9704.
It's game time on the Thundering Herd IMG Sports Network.
Loading a 360 slam!
IMG presents
One-hand throwdown tomahawk jam.
Marshall University Basketball.
Throws on the 27-footer and he knocks it down! Crowd yells, go, go, go. And he has not missed a shot tonight.
Brought to you by the City of South Charleston, someplace special, and John Sang Ford Lincoln, Premier Lincoln Dealership, Upper River Road, Gallipolis, East, Ohio.
Who's the microphone assassin?
It's the Ben Maller Show.
Transmitting now.
The Redskins and Kirk Cousins, you got to look at this both ways, right? They both took calculated risks. Washington said, hey, do it again. Kirk Cousins, from his side, he bet on himself, and now Washington is going to have to pay the man. Scott McCloughan he's gonna need a therapy dog when he finds out how much money Kirk Cousins is going to demand in the offseason. So the Redskins have no one to blame but themselves. They took it, and they did the right thing. The Redskins did the right thing. They say, hey, show us again. And Kirk Cousins, he's doing it. And B, at this point, the Redskins, they might as well wait. But this is Kirk Cousins' meal ticket. He would be an idiot to cash in now. You got to wait.
Ben Maller. The Ben Maller Show.
The microphone throttler.
Overnights on 95 The Sports Fox. Follow the show on Twitter at WBES Brandon Lowe. You can also listen to the Brandon Lowe Show on your TuneIn app or at 95thesportsfox.com. Now, back to the Brandon Lowe Show on 95 The Sports Fox.
All right, welcome back. Brandon Lowe Show, 95 The Sports Fox. Got Ryan and Richard in studio, and we have the host of the Pat White Podcast on the line. Let's go ahead and get to him, Mr. Matty Stout. How you doing, brother?
Brandon, how's the room there? I heard you got a full house.
Oh yeah, I got a full house in my garage here. All right, I wanna first, before we talk about the Mountaineers and stuff, and you guys are obviously going to be up at the Baylor game with your show. I want to talk about the Warriors, man, because you're a big Golden State fan. You're out there in sunny California. Are you happy so far with Kevin Durant?
Oh my gosh! You know, I told everybody at the beginning of the season that we were going to have to give him about 20 games, you know, to kind of get in sync with each other. And I've just been, Durant, we just couldn't, Jesus, if you're going to pick up a guy, there you go. I mean, it's just been so much fun to watch, and they're just really starting to gel, and everybody's learning the roles. And, you know, at first we were a little bit worried there about, if all those personalities are going to work together. And they really are working together. It's just a good culture that team has, and I think that, you know, they all want to win and they want to play together, and it's working out real well so far.
I'm sure if there is the opportunity, which most think this is going to happen before the season, everybody, obviously the storyline is Cavs and Warriors to rematch, and I'm sure as a Warriors fan, you'd love to see how this Warriors team matches up with Kevin Durant already on a very loaded Warriors team.
I would love to see how we line up and also how we play without having to come off of a 73-win game-win season and that playoff. I mean, with the West, you got to run such a gauntlet to get to the finals, where Cleveland just had an easy breezy time to get there. You know, I really feel like that had a lot to do with that loss last season. And I think I said on your show that there was no way we would lose to an Eastern Conference team in the final. So I am eating a little crow on that.
I want to mention this, too, and this was reported that Steph Curry, he's an unrestricted free agent this summer, and I obviously couldn't see him leaving the Warriors, but with Kevin Durant coming over, you don't want to see Steph Curry leave, but he was asked about his hometown Hornets. Now, you know, he's got a house in Charlotte. His dad played there. His dad's an announcer or a guy that does stuff for the Hornets now, and he was asked about the Hornets if they could possibly be a team he would leave the Warriors for, and he simply just said, I don't know. So could you see the Warriors potentially losing Steph Curry to the Hornets?
No. As a fan, no way. But I also think that franchise is built on Steph Curry, and they will always be built on Steph Curry. It's Kevin Durant's great, but I think that, you know, at the end of the day, the management and everybody is invested in Steph, and the fans wouldn't stand for it.
All right, let's talk about the Mountaineers and Baylor this Saturday, 3:30, Fox Sports 1. You'll be up there with Pat. Will Steve be up there with you as well?
I don't think Steve is going to make it in. We're going to try to bring him in on a Skype line. You know, it's wonderful now. We can go and do our podcast. It's live. We're doing it at 11 a.m. at Schmidt Saloon before the game, and I think that we'll have Steve on the line at some point. Of course, Owen will be there, and we're going to see what other players are floating around that morning that want to stop by as well.
Good stuff, man. I want to talk about this game and get your opinion. It's going to be Senior Day. Let's talk about Senior Day first. Holgorsen, he loves Senior Day. You don't see Holgorsen. It's not an emotional guy. He doesn't talk about his team much, other than they need to do better at certain things. He's a perfectionist at times, but he talks about, you know, Senior Day is a special day, and he's talking about how he's really proud of these kids because they're going for their 10th win. Only 8 times in the 125 years of Mountaineer football, they've won 10 games. So it'd be a special day for these seniors to get that 10th win and be the most successful also season since joining the Big 12 for Holgorsen.
You know, I think that I get so frustrated with our fans sometimes because, you know, this has been a very special season with a very special team. Yeah, and I feel like a lot of fans kind of fail to, remember that we weren't supposed to do that well this season, and they've worked their buns off. I mean, that especially those guys on the O line this season, and it's just a shame that we had to have an incident like when people were booing in the Oklahoma game, and I just hope everybody gets out there and really cheers, especially for Skyler. I mean, he just embodies everything that is West Virginia University football to me, and I think this has been a special year and a special team.
Yeah, I was going to mention that. Skylar Howard, recently a article coming out, and he was asked by West Virginia Illustrated, I believe, about Senior Day, and he wasn't very happy to really talk about it. He mockingly said, "Is it?" And then he said, "Another opportunity to get booed," sarcastically. So should he have made that move? Should he have said that? Or is he right in saying that and kind of calling out the fans?
Well, no, I don't think. I think that if he had to do that over again, he probably wouldn't have said that. But these are young men, and young men say things in the heat of passion. And I can understand after getting booed by your home crowd, that you would be very frustrated and upset. So I mean, I don't think that he'd probably want to say that again. But I do understand where the emotion comes from that, and I feel for the guy because that's just it isn't right. I've been a West Virginia fan since I popped out of my mom, and I always tell people, I said, West Virginians, we can't win and we can't lose. We're just kind of bad at both sometimes, and that Oklahoma game kind of reminded me of that. But I hope that it's a really good day for him. I hope he has a great game and leaves that stadium just flying sky high.
I think the thing for me is I understand the booing situation, and I'm on board with that. You probably saw my post up on Facebook I was taking up for, and Ryan was he's going to make his comments here in a little bit about the situation. But I don't know if we can exactly pinpoint Skyler every time the crowd boos when the offense doesn't move the ball as well. I think sometimes the emotions get to Skyler, and he thinks they're booing him. He has such a large chip on his shoulder that I think he's taken a brunt of the responsibility because he is the quarterback and he wants to move the ball. And then when the crowd boos, those emotions hit him, and he thinks they're singling him out at times. I think that sometimes happens with him.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing: when you are the quarterback, it is your offense, and it is his offense, and he feels that way. So if the offense is getting booed, he's feeling like he's the one that's getting booed, and even if they are booing the coach or the play call. He's the one out on the field hearing it, and it's just never good to be a young man out on the field and hearing boos in your home stadium. It's just not a good thing.
I want to move over to this Baylor matchup, and I want to get your opinion on what you might see on Saturday. This is a Baylor team that won 6 straight games, lost 5. Seth Russell lost again this season, this time on an ankle injury. What should we expect out of Baylor? They are going to accept the bowl bid. It should be a hard-fought game. These two teams don't necessarily like each other. Most of the games have been pretty competitive outside of last year. But what do you expect out of this Baylor squad coming to Morgantown?
I think you said it right there. I mean, we don't have real big rivalries in the Big 12 yet, but I just feel like with Baylor, there is a lot of bad blood there. And I think it's going to be a very physical game. I do feel like West Virginia, I think you're going to see these guys coming out with something to prove. So if we can get our receivers out there and open, I think with some big plays that it could be a big game for us. But it's Baylor. You never know.
I want to get your opinion, too, as a WVU fan, outside of the things you do with the show and talking about the team with Pat and those guys. As a fan, what bowl game do you like to see the Mountaineers in? Because they're talking possibly Alamo Bowl, but a lot of people are saying Oklahoma State will probably get that if they lose to Oklahoma. Oklahoma would probably get, obviously, the Sugar Bowl. And then most, what so-called experts are saying, Russell Athletic Bowl in Florida. And a lot of West Virginia fans would like to take the trip to Florida. A lot of West Virginia fans in the state of Florida. So where would you like to see them go?
Oh, my gosh. I would love to see us go and play Virginia Tech in Florida. Talk about an environment if that could come together. That would be an incredible game.
I would like that, and we kind of brought that up as far as a conversation on Facebook, too. And someone brought an interesting question. They go, does that game kind of knock off the luster of the game the next year? We play Virginia Tech, I believe, the first game of the season next year. Would that kind of knock the excitement off that, or is it doesn't really matter?
No, it's Virginia Tech.
Yeah.
I hate the Hokies, man. Boy, do I hate them. And it'd be fun. It'd be fun to beat them in the bowl game, and then have them come in with an attitude and then beat them again.
I actually heard someone say there's a chance that it could be Pittsburgh in that game.
Yeah.
That's the one I would like to see.
That would be even better. I mean, of course, that would be much better. I mean, you can't go wrong with that. You know, we miss those rivalry games, and I'm glad to see some of them coming back up on the schedule. So, anytime we can play one of those guys again, that gets me excited. I can't wait.
Can we, if we play Va Tech in the bowl game, can they bring back the Black Diamond Trophy as well up for grabs? Wouldn't that be something?
That would be real neat. I'm sure somebody will in some way. If not, Brandon, you and I will do it. We'll start it on our show, and we'll do it with your show, and we'll just make it happen.
I want to get, before I let you off, I want to get your quick thoughts. I'm not sure how much you've watched the basketball team, but give me your thoughts, what you've seen so far. Obviously, it's early in the season. This team's interesting because at times they show a lot of brilliance. You know, the press obviously is good, but sometimes, again, they're kind of lacking that half-court offense. It seems like their Achilles heel, as you see, is they get so used to that press style of defense, and then when you force them, you shrink the court into half-court offense. They get lost at times, but sometimes they look pretty brilliant on offense. What's your take on this basketball team so far?
Oh boy, I like this team. I like this team a lot. I think that a lot of the deficiencies on the offensive side, they're making up for this season. You know, that Temple game, to me, that showed a lot of the brilliance of the team. They come out and have a very flat, very just terrible first half, and then almost come back and win it in the second half. And that's something I like to see. And I haven't always seen out of West Virginia teams, because you feel like, you know, we kind of have a reputation sometimes of kind of getting down and not being the comeback team. Of course, we didn't come back and win, but we had it there, and we have the ability to come back now. Where before, last season, if we were down 20, there's no way we would have come back and tied a game. There's no way I could have seen us making up 20 points. So I think that this team is it's deep, it's young, and actually has a few offensive weapons on it. And Adrian, boy, look at that guy. Grows his hair out. He's like Samson. I'm real pleased with him this season. Of course, every time I see him, I'm like, who is that guy? What's he doing with that
hair? You poke fun at my hair. Now Adrian has the same style hair, I think. His is longer than mine, though.
It looks better on him, brother. And,
not as many grays in his either. That's one other.
And he's got his all shiny and cloth, and yours is all ratty and all over the place, man.
I appreciate it, man. I appreciate those compliments.
You got a better beard, though. You got that going for you.
Yeah.
All right, brother. Have fun up there at that game, man, and appreciate you coming on and talk to us.
Yeah, just hope that we get some fans to come by. So we'll be there 11 a.m. at Schmidt's Saloon doing the live show, and Pat will be taking questions and hanging out with Owen. It's a good time to meet those two guys if you never wanted to meet them, because the broadcasts aren't we'll have maybe 100, 200 people there, so good chance to get some one-on-one time.
Good stuff. Matty Stoudy's the host of the Pat White podcast. And did you get a deer, by the way? Weren't you hunting in Pennsylvania?
No. I had one doe that almost ran into me, and that's about it.
Oh, man. All right, brother. Safe travels up to Morgantown this weekend. Appreciate the time.
Thanks, Brandon. You guys have a good night.
All right. Matty Stout, host of the Pat White podcast. I think my hair looks all right. I've been trying to cut it off, though. I think the wife likes the long hair. What are you trying to say, man? Think
Nothing.
You're cool because you got a tie on today?
I'm looking good, yeah.
Yeah?
He is pretty fresh today.
Thanks, guys.
That's all right.
Unlike Brandon.
I shower every day. That counts for something, doesn't it?
Hey, there's some points.
All right. All right, let's take a break. You call the show 304-344-9704. Take us to the go at 95thesportsfox.com. When we come back, I want to get Richard and Ryan's thoughts just briefly on the Skylar Howard situation, getting booed. And then we'll jump into high school football because some big matchups. You got the Super 6 this weekend, and Ryan will get us ready for that.
Yep.
All right. Brandon Lowe Show, 95 The Sports Fox.
You're listening to The Brandon Lowe Show on 95 The Sports Fox. Be a part of the show. Let the Valley hear your opinion.
That's just like your opinion, man.
On the top sports stories, locally or nationally. On The Brandon Lowe Show, call 304-344-9704.
Bring on our guest. He's assistant coach, Fort Wayne Macedons, Mark Downey. What's up, Coach?
Not much, Brandon. How are you guys doing today?
I just want to congratulate you and your staff and your players on a tremendous win over a very good Indiana team.
Thank you. It was huge for our guys and our program and the school and the city. It really was. It was a great event, a great night, probably one of the biggest events in our school history, and a great success.
Listen to the Brandon Lowe Show weeknights at 5 on 95 The Sports Fox.
It's high school basketball season, and Basketball Friday Night in West Virginia is bringing you the latest from every corner of the Mountain State.
High school basketball, there are some rivalries tonight.
Join Ryan Epplin and Coach Rick Maroon for the most up-to-date scoreboard and much more.
To beat Huntington St. Joe, who is 7-time state champ, just makes that victory so much better.
Join Basketball Friday night beginning December 9th from 9 to midnight on WBES 95 The Sports Fox and online at basketballnight.com.
Follow the show on Twitter at WBES Brandon Lowe. You can also listen to the Brandon Lowe Show on your TuneIn app or at 95thesportsfox.com. Now, back to the Brandon Lowe Show on 95 The Sports Fox.
All right, again, want to thank Matty Stout, the host of the Pat White Podcast. Will be at Schmidt Saloon in Morgantown for the big matchup between West Virginia and Baylor. West Virginia going for 10 wins on the season and on their way to a nice bowl game as well. Of course, we would have all loved to see them get that big victory over Oklahoma. Ultimate goal, obviously, for this team, the beginning of the season, was to win a Big 12 title, as most teams are. And then if you're lucky enough to get in an opportunity to play for a national title. But, hey, it's still a great season. And I've been happy with this season.
Yeah, it came a lot closer than I thought they would.
And they were picked, to finish 7th in the conference, 6th or 7th? Preseason media polls, which those are, as we've talked about before, those are just kind of a guess. They don't even matter. But I've been happy with this team. And let's just get your quick thoughts, though, as we mentioned with Matty Stout about the booing of Skylar Howard. Like I mentioned, I don't know if necessarily we can pinpoint that on Skylar every time they boo. I think sometimes the emotions get to him. And, he did the whole thing where he made a gesture towards the crowd. I understand where he comes from. He's an emotional guy. It was a long road to where he got to. He's worked hard. I like the kid a lot. I think he's got a huge heart. Like Matty said, he's the epitome of what the program represents, what the state represents, blue-collar guys. But I think that chip on his shoulder, and a lot of times that could be an extremely positive thing, as we saw with Tom Brady. That chip on the shoulder can kind of bring out the greatness in you. LeBron James had it. When he was at Miami. I mean, I think you had that big chip on your shoulder. You wanted to prove to everybody you're great. But I think sometimes that chip on the shoulder hurts him more than helps him in ways.
Yeah. I think you bring up a good point there, too, that no one's really bringing up about him kind of assuming that everyone's booing him. And at times it's Dana's play calling. At times it's the whole offense in general. My thing is this. I don't think it's ever a good thing to boo your own player. I'm going to preface that by saying that, but at the same time, you're talking about a fan base from a state that's not great economically, first of all.
Right.
Morgantown, if you're going to a WU game, how many people do you know from Charleston that go to WU games? That's a 2.5-hour drive. If you live in Martinsburg, it's the same thing. If you leave south of here, it's even longer.
Right.
So you're talking about a bunch of people who are shelling out money that maybe they don't necessarily have, driving 2-3 hours, and not only paying money for these tickets, but supporting the very scholarship that Skylar Howard's on.
Right.
When you pay for a ticket and you're in the stadium, as long as it's lawful, I think you have the right to do whatever you want in there. Now, whether it makes you look like an idiot or not, that's a completely different topic. But what I want out of a quarterback, too, and this isn't to knock Skylar Howard, I think Skylar Howard's great at times, and I think he's terrible at times. Yeah. I think he's very erratic, more good than bad this year, and he's certainly better this year than he was last year. I'll give him credit for that. But what I want my quarterback to say is, you know what, next week I won't give him a reason to boo me.
Right.
I'm going to be so good next week, they'll never boo me again. That's the kind of leader I think I want on my football team. And not saying he's not a good leader. I'm not knocking Skylar Howard at all here. I just think that's a comment that he shouldn't have said.
Yes.
And like I said, when you're buying tickets, you do whatever you want in there, man, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, but there was also more to it than that. I mean, you take a look at how the game started. Okay, we stopped Oklahoma on their first series. So you have the fumbled punt return. Mm-hmm. Then we, give up some more points, and then we fumble within the 5-yard line. I mean, it's just like the old hee-haw song, Gloom, Despair. If it weren't for bad luck, I'd have no luck at all. Yeah. And that's what occurred in the first 15 minutes of that game. Mm-hmm. And then you have the unsportsmanlike conduct penalties. We lost our composure. all that stuff, and then you top the fans booing on top of it. I mean, it was a snowball.
Yeah.
Now, what you've got to do, and I've learned this in life as I've gotten older, because I'm probably older than all of you, maybe combined. But sometimes there's an opportunity when there's something that's totally right you could say, but it's just not the time to say it. You have to bite your tongue. You have to keep your mouth shut. Put on a happy face, because if you don't, then you're going to get even more criticism at sent your way.
Yeah. Two wrongs don't make a right. If you think something's wrong as far as the fans booing, don't go out and say those comments, because now you're just setting yourself up to be the bad guy as well.
Right. The one thing that also drives me crazy is that you saw this on your social media post too, and I've seen it since it happened. The people that say, well, Skylar Howard's 9-2. And I'm like, no, he's not. West Virginia's 9-2.
Yeah.
I hate that quarterbacks, and they do. They get
They're
way
not
too much
pitchers.
credit, and they get way too much criticism. This team could easily be 6-5. Taysom Hill doesn't throw a ball in the double coverage. BYU at least ties that game. Kansas State missed a field goal within the last minute of the game that would have won the first Big 12 game, and who knows what happens after that. And I believe Howard turned it over, 3 or 4 times at Texas, and our defense kind of bailed us out in that game.
Yeah.
So very easily, this could be a completely different season. We could be talking about Holgerson on his way out and a completely different tale. Now, the fact that they won those games, I think, is a credit to Howard, who's part of that team, and the defense and the running game, which has really carried us at times this year.
Yep. Great points by both of you guys, man. Let's bring on, if he's still on the line there, he held on for a little bit, Chad Rogers over at Sports Fans. What's up, brother?
Hey, what's happening, guys?
Oh, man, just talk about this Skylar Howard situation. What you up to?
Who's Skylar Howard? Hey, whoever just said is 100% right. They get way too much credit when they win and too much blame when the team loses. And he's basically just a young, dumb kid, and everybody was there to just ignore it and move on.
Yeah, I mean, and Ryan makes very good points that this team certainly could not be at 9-2. There was some very close games. I think the defense definitely has a large part to do with us being 9-2. What Gibby's done with that defense. You think about all the guys he lost, either to graduation or to the NFL, and for his defense to play at this high of a level and bailed out the offense several times, especially in that Texas game. Couldn't help it with the Oklahoma State situation, because a lot of times they return interceptions down to about the 5-yard line. So
Kansas State too.
Yes,
17-16. So.
Right. So you got to put. It's been a whole team effort, and you mentioned that running game's really opened up the passing game for Skylar as well.
I think the main man on that team is probably Rasul Douglas. He has probably been the biggest factor of them winning, just the fact that he's pretty much led that defense this whole year. I mean, he's just tearing it up.
Yeah.
Does he have 8 interceptions, which is tied for first in the country?
I think he's actually got the lead by himself now.
Yes.
Oh, cool. Well, hey, I didn't get a chance to call when Maddie's there, but we actually, at Schmidt's on Saturday, we got Jerry Porter coming to town, and is going to come over and be signing at Schmidt's Saloon after the Pat White podcast.
Cool, man. That's really cool stuff. So after the podcast, they can go over and do the autograph thing.
Yeah, we're having former Raider and WVU. He played like every position at WVU: safety, cornerback, wide receiver, quarterback, and he played in the league for like 7 or 8 years. He was on that Raiders team that went to the Super Bowl with Rice and Brown.
Yeah.
So real nice guys happened to be in town for the game, so he's going to come over and sign at Schmidt, and we're pumped up about it. And I heard you guys talking about the bowl game. We actually, down at Sports Fans, I got tired of waiting, so I just called the bowl and asked them a bunch of questions, and they told me that they want West Virginia bad, and that it could be anybody from Louisville, Miami, Virginia Tech. And I hadn't heard the Pitt one yet, but they said Louisville, Virginia Tech, or Miami.
I also heard Florida State as well.
Yeah, somebody, I don't know how it works, but the Russell Athletic Bowl is part of a little conglomerate. I guess the Citrus Bowl, there's like 3 of them together and everything. But yeah, they want West Virginia bad because they know they'll travel to Florida.
Yeah.
And the Alamo Bowl looks like they're going to take one of the Oklahoma.
Yeah, they will. They'll take Oklahoma State or Oklahoma, depending. I think Oklahoma. I mean, obviously, if Oklahoma wins, they'll be in the. Whoever wins that game is going to the Sugar Bowl. Then, the loser will go to the Alamo Bowl.
Yeah, Russell Athletic.
Do you think if State just smacks Oklahoma around, kind of like Ohio State did a few years ago against Wisconsin, they'll let them leapfrog everybody?
No.
Because in theory, Oklahoma State should really be undefeated.
No, they're not going to leapfrog. And, obviously everybody brings up that Central Michigan situation, but that's, the Big 12 basically signed their death warrant at the beginning of the season. Yeah. After that, the committee never paid attention.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just kind of crazy, though, to think that they're just getting no respect at all.
Going back to the original bowl game thing real quick, if Russell Athletic could get Pitt and W in there together, they would be crazy not to do that.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It would be really massive. Pitt's actually, I think, a little bit better. Been playing a little bit better lately. They scored about 100 points against Syracuse, didn't they, a couple weeks ago?
They have 2 wins against the top 7 too, beating Penn State and Clemson were both Pitt wins.
Well, heck, we ought to just put them in the playoffs too.
What's your take on the playoffs, man?
I just think that if your team's not only good enough that they can't win their conference, but they can't even win their own division in the conference, how the hell are they supposed to be one of the top 4 teams in the country? It just doesn't make any sense.
Well, yeah, the conference title games have gone out the window, and the committee keeps talking about the 4 best teams, not the 4 best champions. At least with the BCS
era, you
had
2
years
shot.
ago. That's the reason you let Ohio State in 2 years ago was because in that 13th game they beat Wisconsin.
I get what you're saying there, but if you can watch Ohio State play and tell me that's not one of the 4 best teams in the country, then I have to question your football knowledge, man, because they are absolutely one of the 4 best.
It's just kind of like it's like the thing with Oklahoma State. If you were one of the best teams, you shouldn't have let a MAC team get that close to you. I mean, they should have never lost to Penn State.
Penn State got beat by 39 by Michigan too.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It doesn't make any sense. And didn't Iowa just beat Michigan and then?
Yeah, I guess the
that's
thing is.
What I mean, I think Ohio State's a really good team, but it just goes back that there should be a reward for not only winning your conference, but if you can't even be the best team in your division to get to the conference championship game.
LSU did that a few years ago and played Alabama in a national title game.
Yeah.
Yes,
yeah, but see, that's you're looking at it from that context. But according to this new playoff formula, they say that head-to-head, conference championships, and comparable teams that you play are tiebreakers, or what they call razor-thin edge. If you've got 2 teams, say they were to say that Ohio State and Penn State were 2 comparable teams, then they'd look at conference championships. I mean, the only way you're going to get conference championships ever to make a difference again is if they decide to change it. If they decide to go to 8 teams and give every conference champion an automatic bid and 3 at large.
Yes.
It's the only way.
That's the absolutely right way to do it, too.
Oh, yeah, they definitely could do that. If they could figure out a way to make more money, I'm sure they would.
I just think if you keep Ohio State out of it, who do you put in ahead of them?
I don't know. But it's just, do you remember a few years ago when they got into the playoffs and won? The big argument for putting them in was the fact that they won their conference and that they beat the crap out of Wisconsin in the championship game. That was like the big thing that they.
I think that was more of a scapegoat, man. I mean, because you had TCU and Baylor with their victories. WVU basically messed that up for the whole Big 12, beating them and with kind of erasing those victories. So I think that was mostly them saying, "Hey, we don't know what we're going to do with Baylor and TCU. You have no title game to decide this. Ohio State has a title game. They're certainly one of the best teams in college football, so that's what decided. That's why that happened."
Yeah.
I just think that. I don't know. I do think that they're one of the better teams in football. I just wish that the committee would – it's like they just leave too much of a gray area. They don't actually come out and say 100% exactly what they want. And it seems like they're a little bit fickle about it other than Alabama and Ohio State.
Well, man, we're close to a break. We appreciate you calling in, dude.
All right, man. I'll talk to you guys later.
See ya. All right, Chad Rogers. Here's the thing. Ohio State is – without a doubt, one of the best teams in the country. They
Don't
deserve to be up there. If you watch that Michigan-Ohio State game, now Michigan was the better team for 4 quarters. For the most part.
3 quarters.
3 quarters, yeah. Fourth quarter they came. Yeah. They made a comeback there. But, it's just like Michigan.
I think Michigan's one of the 4 best teams in the country, too.
Absolutely. I think Michigan, Ohio State, extremely impressed with them in that game. I've been impressed with them all season. And you mentioned that whole Iowa situation, and I rode Michigan a little hard on the Iowa situation. But when it comes down to it, anybody can lose on any given Saturday. It doesn't necessarily mean you're not the best or one of the best teams in the country. It's just a play happened. Like the Ohio State game, they blocked a field goal, they returned it for a touchdown.
Yeah.
I mean, Ohio State, it's not like they got, ran out of the building by 20 or 40 points. I mean, they were right there. It's just and Penn State's a great team. I think we're estimating this Penn State team too. I think they're not one of the best teams in college football as far as a top 4, but they're a very good ball club.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Big Ten's solid all across the board. And the one thing that people forget, because it happened so long ago, remember back when Ohio State went to Oklahoma and won by 21?
Right.
Yeah. I mean, how good does that win look now?
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So, you look at that Ohio State and Michigan game this, that past Saturday, and when you're watching this, you're like, I'm watching 2 of the best teams in college football go toe to toe.
Well, don't be surprised if Clemson loses in the ACC championship game. You could very well see Michigan slide up into that slot. Why do you think they left Penn State sitting at 7?
Oh, yeah. I mean,
that was on purpose.
But here's the thing, too. I'm not really mostly focused on ACC because even though Vol Tech has a nice defense.
I'm with you here.
I'm not worried. If I'm Michigan, I'm watching the Pac-12 championship game.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Because
Colorado's ranked 8.
But Colorado, no. Because if they knock off Washington, now you've opened the door for Michigan to just come right through the back door, right in the top 4.
If that happens, God help you if you're on that committee. Because how in the world do you pick one of all those 2-loss schools?
Yeah.
Not only, so Michigan beat Penn State. I get that. But if Penn State wins the Big Ten, how do you differentiate there? And, oh, by the way, here's a Colorado team that only has 2 losses that just beat Washington to get there.
Right.
So I don't – well, obviously, actually, Michigan beat Colorado, too.
Yes,
so
that's where it eliminates.
Yeah,
so that's why I'm saying you eliminate those losses. Plus, again, let's go back to the root of this whole thing. You got the blue blood programs. You're going to want to sell some tickets. This would be a beautiful thing for a college football fan. I mean, I would enjoy it if Michigan gets in there. You got Ohio State. I'd love to see a rematch. Not for the national title. Yeah. That'd be cool, too, I guess. But I'd like to see maybe a semifinal between Ohio State and Michigan. You don't want to see that?
No, I'm laughing because just one real quick thing. If you're Nick Saban, do you rest your starters? What difference does that game mean at all?
Yeah.
If they lose that game, they're still going to make the
against Florida.
They're undefeated. Yeah. Just sit Jalen Hurts. What if he goes out there and gets hurt and then you lose in the semifinals?
Well, that's what I was talking about the past 2 days. That the only championship game that really brings any type of substance, because if you look at the Big Ten title game, nothing matters there. None of those teams are making a playoff. They're going to be a Big Ten champion. They're going to go to the Rose Bowl. That's it. You look at the Pac-12 championship, that's the only one that could maybe just shuffle that playoff situation. Now, the ACC can.
Yeah, I think you're right. The Pac-12 is the bigger potential down here. And what I love about all this, we're talking all this playoff stuff. Other than Alabama, so much for the SEC being the best conference in football.
It's the most beautiful thing ever. Yeah. 4 losses for every single team if Alabama beats Florida.
Yep.
And I'll tell you one more real quick. Watch the MAC championship game because Tom Bragg brought this up, and it is a very interesting point, and it would be hilarious. Let's pretend for a second that Western Michigan loses. Okay, Navy plays the AAC championship game on Saturday against Temple. Now, if Navy wins that game, you guys remember that the best of the non-Power 5 get one of the major bowl bids.
Cotton Bowl.
But Navy plays another game a week later against Army.
Yep.
So the whole rankings thing would have to be delayed a week to wait to see if Navy beat Army.
Yeah, I saw that.
I'm rooting for that so hard, it's not even funny.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
We want it in chaos, don't we, boys?
That's right. Whatever it takes to blow the committee up, I'm doing.
All right, let's go ahead and take a break. We're going to get to this high school stuff, I promise. Let's do that when we come back.
Down.
How many minutes we're going to have when we come back, Matlock? 8 minutes. So we can break that
3
down
games.
and do our Let's Get Weird news and get out.
Yep.
All right, back after the short break with some high school football Super 6 coverage. Brandon Lowe Show, 95 Sports Fox.
You're listening to The Brandon Lowe Show on 95 The Sports Fox. Be a part of the show. Let the Valley hear your opinion.
You know, that's just like your opinion, man.
On the top sports stories, locally or nationally, on The Brandon Lowe Show. Call 304-344-9704.
Bring on our guest. He's assistant coach, Fort Wayne Macedons, Mark Downey. What's up, Coach?
Not much, Brandon. How are you guys doing today?
I just want to congratulate you and your staff and your players on a tremendous win over a very good Indiana team.
Thank you. It was huge for guys and our program and the school and the city. It really was. It was a great event, a great night, probably one of the biggest events in our school history, and a great success.
Listen to the Brandon Lowe Show weeknights at 5 on 95 The Sports Fox.
This is the Dan Patrick Show.
Just like to say that y'all rock, man.
Ty Dunn is a feature writer for Bleacher Report. He wrote a profile on Aaron Rodgers today. I guess it's open season now on Aaron Rodgers. You know, everybody waits for the one thing to be said about somebody, and then it feels like everybody else can pile on if they want to. And the only reason why I bring this up is that it feels like Rodgers is not himself.
Dan Patrick.
Mornings 9 to noon on 95 The Sports Fox.
Follow the show on Twitter at WBES Brandon Lowe. You can also listen to The Brandon Lowe Show on your TuneIn app or at 95thesportsfox.com. Now, back to The Brandon Lowe Show on 95 The Sports Fox.
All right, last segment on this Thursday show, and we got Ryan and Richard in the house. Normally I have Ryan on Fridays, but you're covering a softball. What did you say? Softball
Girls
game?
basketball,
Basketball,
baby.
Okay. Why'd I say softball? Basketball. Softball's out of season, right?
Yeah, it's coming.
Few months
Few
still
months,
to go.
warmer weather.
See, live radio, you got to make some. You got to mess up sometimes, right?
There you go.
All right. So high school football, Super 6. Bobby Johnson still dodging us. His eyebrow's just been gone.
Ducking us.
So we'll wait. It's funny because he keeps saying, well, let's wait until after the Super 6.
Yeah, and it makes no difference.
I already went over these games as far as what we saw with Tom Bragg on Monday. So I want to jump into the matchups currently that we're going to see Saturday. We're going to see Martinsburg and Spring Valley. Start with Class AAA. Both teams bring a lot of size, a lot of talent. Like Tom Bragg even said, kind of mentioned briefly that this is going to be one, as most games, in the trenches. How do you see this game playing out?
This one even more so, though, because it is absolutely the best strength on Spring Valley's team is up front. If Spring Valley can get first downs in this game, and I know that sounds like such a little thing in the scope of most football games, but what Spring Valley wants to do to you is get first downs and keep the football and run up the time of possession advantage. That's what they want to do. So if they can move the sticks, especially with their running game against Martinsburg, they can keep this close. If Martinsburg comes out and is able to get them off the field a couple times, Spring Valley can't keep up if this turns into Martinsburg scoring touchdowns left right deal. So Spring Valley, the absolute key to this game is to average 3.5 yards a play, and that's how they win this game, or at least stay in it.
Also, Spring Valley would be, I believe, the first team to score some type of points, right?
In the postseason, correct. Right. Yeah, Martinsburg's defense is averaging 7.6 points per game all year.
Yeah.
That's unbelievable.
They've outscored opponents in the playoffs so far 154-0.
Yeah, it's pretty good, right?
Yeah.
Now, with Martinsburg on offense and defense, is there a lot of speed? Is there size? Is there a combination of both, or what?
Yeah,
what?
Martinsburg has everything. It really is an institution. You know, they came down here and played Capital last year in the quarterfinal and lost. And I was at that game, and after that game, I tweeted out, Martinsburg will win a state title next year, because you could see it. It's on the field. They were just young. And now this team's not young anymore, and you see what they are. I do believe Spring Valley's the best team they've played all year, and I do believe Spring Valley can stay in this game if they can move the line of scrimmage. And if anyone's going to move the line of scrimmage against Martinsburg, it's going to be Spring Valley, because it's the best offensive line in the state.
All right, let's move over to Double-A. Fairmont Senior coming up, obviously, the big victory over Bridgeport, went for 2 and double overtime. Defeating Bridgeport, I believe, first time since 2006.
Yeah, 12 straight meetings before that.
And then you have Mingo Central, who finally James Moreau lost that whole Cinderella thing going and got waxed by Mingo Central 41-21. So you got Mingo Central and Fairmont Senior. You're certainly looking forward to this one. Go ahead and tell us about this game.
Yeah, I told you outside I think this is the best game of the three, and I do, because I think this is, if you were to put spreads on high school football games, which obviously you wouldn't because it's illegal, but I think this is this is as close to a pick'em game as you're going to find, I think. When Mingo fullback Joe Hunt, who is just a bruising running back, as bruising of a back as I've seen this year, runs into one of the Still brothers. This thing might measure on the Richter scale up there in Wheeling, because this is going to be fun. Fairmont Senior has the best defensive front I've seen all year. Now, I haven't seen Martinsburg, but I'm including AAA schools. Those Stills brothers are legit, and they ate Bridgeport up not once, but even when Bridgeport beat them twice. Mingo's awful good up front, and that's where they beat James Monroe last week, was up front. Jeremy Dillon's as dynamic as any player in the state. I'm sure you have his stats over there. Over 2,800 yards passing, 1,000 yards rushing. He plays defense. He punts. So does Jake Abbott for Fairmont Senior. I think Fairmont's played the tougher schedule. Mingo's been more dominant. So this is going to be a really interesting game to see these two teams meet, because this will by far be the best team Mingo's played all year.
Will this be one of those things that could all be about the turnovers?
Yeah, absolutely. In a game like this, between these two teams, and they're very similar, what they do. Jake Abbott's and Jeremy Dillon are very similar players. Defense, dual threat quarterbacks that kind of do it all for their team. I think I'm going to take Mingo simply because I like what the Hunt kid does, and I like their defense. They've been very good on defense lately, too.
All right, we only got 3 minutes left. I want to get to these weird news, so I want to go ahead and do this Class A real quick. East Hardy and St. Mary's, you brought this up to me last night in a message. 13 turnovers apiece last year. Yeah. Or I'm sorry, 13 penalties, 7 turnovers. So what's the difference in this game? Because East Hardy had negative 20 rushing yards, but still won by 17 points.
Yeah. How many football games have you ever seen that in? These are two schools looking for their first title ever. And if you look at single A football over the last 5 to 10 years, these have been two of the premier programs in the state. Obviously, a rematch of last year's semifinal. You have East Hardy quarterback Corey McDonald, who's getting some major Kennedy push. He's a great player. Great passing attack. Threw for 402 last year against St. Mary's. And receiver Brett Tharp last year, 11 catches for 249 and 2 touchdowns. Both will play on Saturday. But St. Mary's, we mentioned Martinsburg defense, and just real quick, Buffalo, Gilmer County, and Fayetteville were 3 of the top 6 offenses in Class A. We mentioned Martinsburg hadn't given up a point in the playoffs. St. Mary's has given up 7.
Right.
This defense is stout, and it's all about what happens when East Hardy's offense is on the field. They can move the ball, they can win the game. If St. Mary's plays like it has been the last 3 weeks, I think St. Mary's is going to be okay.
All right, certainly looking forward to those. Ryan, you killed that, man.
Thanks, man. I was in a hurry, too.
Oh, and very quickly, by the way, we've ran the numbers. if I win the 2 games, we have a tie.
Yeah, okay. We'll flip a coin then. Let's get to our Let's Get Weird news.
Let's get weird, buddy. Let's get weird. News.
All right, beware the Phantom dumper. Officials in Utah are searching for someone who's been clogging up sewers with fibrous gunk. Now the city's offering a $2,500 reward for information leading to the Phantom. Our other weird news here, some pollution sniffing dogs at the Jersey Shore have shown they're number 1 at sniffing out number 2. A team of trained dogs have pointed out more than 70 spots in 3 towns near a river in Jersey where human waste has been making its way into a waterway, parts of which are close to shellfishing because of high bacteria levels. There's your Let's Get Weird news. Wow.
Let's get weird, buddy.
You're a master at those.
News. Computer blue.
Matlock's actually farting in the mic. Those aren't sound effects.
Yeah.
Always depend on you guys for a good fart noise when I need one.
Ryan, Richard, appreciate you.
No problem.
Thanks, bud.
Matlock, good job.
Thanks, man.
As always, taking out the fire in the beginning.
Yep.
Matty Stout, host of the Pat White Podcast. Thanks to him as well. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow for the Friday show, Brennan Lowe Show, 95 Sports Fox. Good night.
Good. In your face, Charlie Murphy. Good. Shoot the J. Shoot it! Shoot it! Shoot it! Shoot it!
The Brandon Lowe Show, weekday evenings at 5 on WBES AM 950, Charleston.
Fox Sports trending now. Tiger Woods today shot a 1 over par 73 at the Hero World Challenge, his first competitive round in over a year following 3 back procedures. Out of 18 players, he's currently in 17th place, 9 shots back of J.B. Holmes, who's at 8 under par. Patriots 10-end Rob